Synergistic Software's 1990 shoot-'em-up New York Warriors is set in 2005 or 2014 depending on whether you read the US or European instruction manual. Terrorists known as the Church of the Third Coming, or the catchy C3C for short, have planted a nuclear device in the now ill-fated World Trade Center. As per most action genre titles, only one man, well actually two if you have a friend to play co-op with, can stop the destruction of the Big Apple and thwart the nefarious designs on world domination. You are a member of a resistance group called the Warriors, and as you've probably guessed, less than subtle nods to Walter Hill's excellent 1979 film of the same name informs the basic game premise and some of the enemy sprite work, like the Baseball Furies. There's also a tip of the hat to the equally excellent John Carpenter's Escape from New York. There's no real intro apart from a short title screen followed by a scrolling demo, enemy bios and a high score table. A difficulty select is the only in-game option, with a choice of easy, normal, hard or flame, whatever that means. The inter-level screens are well presented and have a passing resemblance to Williams' Narg, as they introduce a new enemy you might face during that level. Hitting the gang-infested streets, New York Warriors goes for the traditional top-down perspective and is typically arcade in its art style. One of the first things that jumps out at you is the proportions of the player characters and protagonists. They may have the body of Sly Stallone, but the legs of Danny DeVito. Their pretty lackadaisical walk routines and movement speed could be attributed to these rather stumpy legs. Marching on, it doesn't take long to be impressed by the amount of on-screen carnage. While not getting close enough to be described as a bullet hell, it will sure feel like it as projectiles rain from every angle. This does come at the cost of some slowdown as the multi-directional scrolling stutters, but during the chug, at least you can catch your breath. Explosions look quite dramatic and the fluidity of the scrolling holds up for the most part. Enemy designs pull from every 80s cliche including Ramboids, and the obligatory less than stealthy ninjas. Tanks and other artillery often join the fray. The colourful projectiles and explosions help break up the majority of the sprawling concrete jungles you'll be fighting your way through. You can't help but be taken in by the amount of on-screen carnage, but even upon its release in 1990, it still looked slightly dated then. Music and sound effects are next on the agenda. Helping to sell the chaos are some extremely well done samples. Explosions sound suitably devastating and gunfire sounds quite impactful. Ricochets and destructible scenery also add another layer of production value. As for music, there are only two in-game tunes. One is brash and makes use of some mid-heavy guitar samples. It's slightly cheap sounding, but is offset by a more keyboard-heavy song which has some nice 80s inspired melodies. Surprisingly, the best musical composition is during the inter-level screens, with the moody and ominous piece hinging on deep synths. In terms of sonics, what's present is relatively pleasing but hampered by a lack of variety. Spray and pray is something you'll be doing a lot of in New York Warriors as you try to preempt the waves of enemies who are intent on gunning you to Kingdom Come. You'll also be doing a lot of dodging too, as some static foes will unleash a hail of bullets that you almost have to work your way through to create an angle. Annoyingly, some of these enemies upon height aren't reachable, causing you to waste some of your precious special ammo before you realise. The game is quite generous in its special weapon placement as you'll soon find your standard issue firearm isn't up to scratch, although it will suffice for those rogue grannies or park bench sleepers. Walking over a new gun will be enough to pick it up, and a nice little bonus is that you can hold a maximum of 2, reverting to the first special as soon as the ammo has run out. Blasting your way through the Big Apple will be a familiar vertical trek, although there will be a few short sections where you'll be funneled to the sides. While some feel like a nice deviation, other parts of the level design are poorly implemented and feel like padding. You won't be able to dwell on this too much though, as the over-the-top action can at times be exhilarating and frustrating enough to make even Prince Andrew sweat. New York Warriors is difficult, but in a strange twist, selecting hard mode grants you more continues. You will need them, and perseverance will be key in making progress. It is occasionally unfair, and how much you buy into the game will be highly dependent on your patience, skills and reactions. Upon release, the game didn't receive too much coverage from the Amiga press, but did garner a perfectly respectable average of around 70% from those who took up arms back in the day. New York Warriors might have looked dated upon release, but it fully embraces those arcade roots, not shying away from the simplicity of its gameplay. This isn't the most fluid running and gunning action you'll find on the Amiga, although it can look occasionally spectacular due to the sheer amount going on. Yes, it may creak and groan like our favourite OAP action heroes, but it still packs a half decent punch.